Good morning and welcome to On the Record with Buddy Cianci, our final show of, I guess you could say, this past year, because this is being broadcast on really the first Sunday of the new year. And who better to have as a guest than some arguably would say the most powerful politician in the state of Rhode Island, who heads the Rhode Island legislature, or certainly the House of Representatives. This will be his second full year in the leadership of the Rhode Island House. And we want to find out what he thinks he accomplished this past year and what we have to look forward to in the future. My guest this morning, Speaker of the House, Nick Mattiello. Thanks for being here and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year, Mayor. Thanks for having me. Always a pleasure.
Thanks for being here. Let me ask you something. You came in kind of with a baptism of fire when Gordon Fox left, and came in kind of mid-season, kind of like a relief pitcher. The fact is that now you had like one full season, and now you're ready to start another one. Tell me, if you had to, let's go backwards. If you had to, what kind of year do you think that the legislature had? If you had to grade it, or you had to have give us your accomplishments, go ahead. I'm going to give you the elevator kind of question. What did you accomplish in the first full year of your stewardship?
All right, I don't like giving grades. I never give grades, but I'm very proud of the session we've had. Actually, I'm very proud of the entire speakership I've had. The reputation of Rhode Island is transformed from being anti-business to one of very business-friendly. The economic changes that we've made, the tax changes that we've made, last year alone we've changed, we've eliminated taxes on Social Security, we've eliminated sales tax on energy costs. Those types of changes are giving us a national reputation of stabilizing our tax base and having a more pro-business outlook. And I hear that from national folks all the time from different groups. So I'm very pleased that we're changing the conversation about Rhode Island. We're being perceived as being more business-friendly, and we're going to continue to move forward with our mantra. My mantra is jobs in the economy, and it's working.
Okay, so now, but there's no real way to measure that right now. I know that 6,000 jobs were created, but was that because of the cyclical nature of economics and because of the national recovery and all? Because a lot of people, when they count unemployment, you know, it's kind of a negative, because even though your unemployment rate goes down, the number of people you have looking for jobs goes up because the people drop out of the workforce. Is it really a false number?
I don't know if it's a false number, but it's a complex number. I'll certainly agree with that. And I don't think that you can give any one thing or one person all of the credit, but I will say focusing on jobs in the economy certainly helps. And a lot of the policies. My first budget as Speaker, we lowered the corporate tax rate. We raised the exemption on the estate tax from $921 to $1.5 million. We're just creating a different environment. Business folks, successful people are more interested, more willing to invest in Rhode Island because we've stabilized.
But you also imposed a tax on real estate for, you know, the vacation tax, they so-called call it.
And I've always said you don't want to be an outlier, you want to be competitive. Our neighboring states do that, so I wasn't that offended by that particular tax. You want to be competitive with it.
I thought Connecticut and Massachusetts did not do that.
I could be corrected, buddy, but I believe that Massachusetts does, in fact, do that.
All right, but anyway, that's one thing that was that some people criticized. Anyway, now tell us, I remember watching a press conference early last year, with you standing with the Senate Majority Leader and also the Senate President and the Governor out in front of the 610 connector, and you were there, and it was kind of a big kumbaya session. How much did you really know about the program of highway bridge repair when you went in there? Because you didn't really endorse it. You said we're going to work as closely as we can with the governor. How much briefing did you get before you went in that press conference, at the 610 connector? Because you, to your credit, you were the only one standing, by the way, at the end of this saga between us and tolls, because the Senate passed it, the governor wanted it, and you put it right when you were debating the width and length of a chicken coop one night last year. You said, end the session, we're not going to do the tolls anymore. How much briefing did you have before there was that togetherness up under the Route 610 connector?
We discussed the general parameters. We discussed the idea. I certainly condoned and applaud the governor for the initiative. It's a big initiative, but it's one Rhode Island needs.
But you weren't explained anything at the time. You just went up on the stage and said, we want to fix the roads.
We didn't have specifics. I believed that her plan to shore up and fix our bridges, overpasses, and roadways was appropriate. I stood there for that purpose. And you know, some people will note that I stood there, and I was certainly there, but I was...
In spirit.
No, I did say I applaud the governor
Yeah.
on the initiative. I think
Right.
it's a great idea, but our
Okay.
finance committee will study it, and
Yeah,
we'll
you
make
did
sure
say
there's
that.
no negative impact on businesses.
Fast
So
forward.
I kept my word.
Yep.
We're studying it.
Okay.
We're doing an economic study. We're making sure it's good for the economy, and then we'll move forward.
Fast forward to January of 2016. We still don't have any roads being fixed, and we still don't have a tolling plan that's been accepted by the legislature, or the people for that matter. There's been a lot of controversy. Should we toll? What kind of truck should we toll? Where the gantry is going to be? Do we need to go to bond? Do we have to go to can we go to general obligation bond where the interest rates would be less? Can we pay as you go? Where do you stand now? Because this has been so back and forth and ping-pongish, if you know what I'm talking about, that the Rhode Island public needs to know. We have to fix the bridges. That's a given. What are we going to do that? And when do you think it might happen? And have you had any discussions? And can we do it without paying $1.1 billion to build $500 million worth of roads? That's absurd.
I think we can, buddy. And
Okay.
those are all good questions, and the public has a right to answers to each and every question. My plan is to make the public a partner, to fully advise them, be very transparent, and fully discuss it. No piece of legislation is perfect. So you're going to have those that are in favor of it and those that are opposed to it. But moving forward, we certainly have to do something. We're ultimately going to do something with tolling, I believe. I believe that...
You think it can be done without tolling?
Sure it can, but you need a revenue source from a different revenue source. Your other sources are gas tax, diesel tax. You'd have to increase those in some form or fashion.
The governor...
I don't believe that would be appropriate, because the tolling imposes some of the cost on out-of-state trucks that cause some of the wear and tear on our bridges. Any other plan is borne exclusively by Rhode Islanders. The tolling plan shifts some of the cost outside of Rhode Island.
But, you know, in all honesty, there was not a lot of transparency on the part of the governor's office. I mean, I'm not asking you to criticize or praise anybody, but I'm just saying the press felt that they were kind of shut out of the process. There was not a lot of information that was given to the press, even after they requested it under the Freedom of Records Act or Freedom of Information. And now, to this day, no one knows where the gantry is going to be. The governor claims she does know, but she wants to pass her bond issue first, and then she'll tell us where the tolls are. Are you in favor of that approach?
Absolutely not. And I believe the governor is well-intentioned, so I don't want to characterize her thought process. I believe she's well-intentioned. But I believe my experience in the General Assembly has taught me that you have to make the public a partner. You have to make sure they're very well informed, they have a very transparent process, and that the public has all information, good, bad, and ugly, significant details, insignificant details, so that, and as it's being debated, all issues can be vetted and all issues can be addressed, so that when it's finally done, you don't get an "I didn't know that." And that's the one thing I will not let happen. Now, let me get back to the tolling for a minute. I believe that ultimately we'll have to toll trucks. We've done a lot of study. I've been working on it all summer. Our fiscal staffs have all been working on it. Mine, the governors, the senates, everybody's been working on it. I don't have a better plan. So the tolling appears to be the best plan. My ultimate goal, and what we're all working on, I believe it's realistic to move forward with the tolling plan, but do it pay as you go and not necessarily incur the cost of bonding. If we could do that, that would save substantial money, substantial interest costs,
Okay, so it would
substantial
be-
bonding costs, and it would enable us to ultimately lower the tolls on all of the trucks.
So you wouldn't have any interest costs, which would be the $600 million, but you still get the same amount of work done.
Correct.
Maybe. Okay.
And I think you could potentially do the same scope of work and the same timetable. It's just because you're not going to do every project on day one.
One of the complaints people have is that if you go for a 30-year bond and you fix the roads, 20 years, those roads, the shelf life is 15 to 20 years. You haven't even paid for the roads yet, and they're ready for repairs or for reconstruction, and that's what a lot of people object
I agree, and you have to stop shifting costs to the future. We have to stop delaying necessary repairs. There are a lot of folks that call for doing nothing.
Yeah.
We know where nothing gets you. Nothing gets you to having the worst roads and bridges in the country, and that distinction is going to stop.
What are your legislative priorities? Let's get into that. Obviously, it's got to be the highways because that's been an old penny that's been hanging around for a long time. What are your legislative goals for next year?
My legislative goals for this year are the same as they were in the previous year. Jobs in the economy, we're going to keep plugging away. We're going to keep enacting policies that best serve our community, our taxpayers, and our economy. We want to create jobs. And if you look
But what
at
specifically
the sum
do
of
you-
everything we've done, it slowly works. You hit a lot of singles, and before you know it, you start getting the results. And today, you're getting results on work that we've done 2 and 3 years ago, and it's starting to
Give me
pay
an
off.
example of one.
An example of something.
Yeah,
well,
that's finally taken hold.
Wexford
Okay.
is in fact becoming more realistic. I'm not sure if we're going to ultimately have a final deal, but Wexford looks like it may come to fruition. There are serious negotiations going on. I was just briefed on that today, and those are the incentives we just passed.
That
We
Wexford
passed-
being the company that wants to go down to I-195 and build, I think, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of square feet with a combination hotel, office space, research, but they need tenants, obviously, and they like the idea that Brown and Royal Hospital and Brown Medical School and all that. Okay, so that's moving along.
Yeah, and you cited the 6,000 job increase. That's a bunch of singles, slowly but surely.
Okay.
I was briefed today. There's a company in the northern part of Rhode Island that's using our tax incentive program to create 25 more jobs. So you hit a lot of singles. You incrementally increase jobs, and before you know it, the economy is churning along the way it should be.
How do we adequately measure? You know, you voted to put this $25 million tax credit program in to speed along. Why not? How do you really measure what are the metrics? How do you really measure if those jobs are created? Is there an organization that truly can give us numbers on those things? For historic tax credits, as an example. Is there anybody that does that in the state of Rhode Island?
I don't know. You'd have to be a pretty sophisticated economist. So I'm not an expert on the economy. I seek the advice of experts. And,
But I mean,
you know, one of the economists, Len Ladaro at URI, I rely upon him heavily because I have a lot of respect for him and the work he does. He suggested that we actually hire high-degree economists to work at the General Assembly so we can start to measure this and create metrics for the economy.
In other words, if I get a
work.
$10 million tax break and I'm supposed to create so many jobs, who measures whether those jobs are actually created? That's the key. But I want to get on to
You'd have to be an economist to actually
there's
measure
no, like how
those
Providence
accurately.
has a thing called First Source where they actually are trying to measure those jobs now, what's created. I've got 30 seconds before the break, but 38 studios.
Yes.
You finally issued subpoena power, you went back and forth on that all year, no subpoena power, maybe subpoena power, then you gave subpoena power, and nothing really has come up. Corso takes the fifth. Costantino's coming in to testify, but he's already testified basically at the hearings or the depositions. What made you change your mind on issuing subpoenas?
Well, I never really changed my mind. I originally said let the civil lawsuit play out. Let's get that information first. If you noticed, I said we'll do hearings immediately after we got all the deposition testimony. It's a great starting point. You know what you have. You know what you have to get. I've agreed to issue subpoenas. Anyone outside of the jurisdiction of Rhode Island, the subpoenas of the House have no jurisdictional value.
Have you been asked, the Speaker, to give any more subpoenas outside of the ones to Costantino, which he was coming in on his own anyway, without the subpoena, and of course Mr. Corso or Mr. Schilling?
No, everyone that I've been asked to approve, I've approved. We'll see where the testimony that we have lined up goes, and we'll take it from there. Ultimately, I believe the public knows the story, knows what happened. I just want to make sure that the public feels comfortable, they have as much information regarding what went wrong, and that we learn from that. The public's part of that discussion.
Okay, thank you. Okay, we're going to get into other things when we get back, like the paw socks, and we're going to talk about some other things. But right now, it's time to take a break. We'll continue with Nick Mattiello, the Speaker of the Rhode Island House of Representatives. Stay tuned. All right, here we are back again on the record with Buddy Cianci, my guest Nick Mattiello, the Speaker of the House. Speaker, one of the biggest stories last year was the paw socks. They're going to leave the Pawtucket, go to Providence. Then they asked for $120 million. That was kind of a dead on arrival. And then they were going to go to out of town. Where does that stand now? When's the last time you had any meetings on that or any communication with anybody about moving that forward so that they stay in Rhode Island?
I haven't had any communications with the Paw Sox since about the time that the last proposal fell apart. I still strongly believe that they're not going to remain in their current location in Pawtucket beyond their lease. It's a model that's dated. I know a lot of folks want to keep them there, and if that was an option, I would strongly consider it. But I don't believe it's an option. Certainly not an option without expending a lot of public money on McCoy.
Oh, yeah.
That's what a lot of people don't realize. It needs a lot of money. It needs a lot of money.
Have you seen that study, by the way, that would what it would cost to redo McCoy?
I heard about the study. I haven't read the study, so to be honest with you, I don't know if I physically saw it.
What have you heard? It's
with the number that comes to mind is $60 million. So it's a facility that needs a lot of rehab. And so ultimately the Paw Sox, I believe, are going to leave there. I hope that as they're looking for locations, they'll consider another location in Providence. I believe they're part of the social fabric of the state of Rhode Island. Ultimately, the citizens like having them in Rhode Island. And, you know, we want them here, but we want to make sure that however we keep them here, the deal for the new stadium is fair to the citizens. And buddy, I had a good deal on the table. We were negotiating something that was very positive.
Yeah, but we never found out the details of that, did we?
No, because as we were getting ready to begin to roll it out,
wanted the big dough, and
yeah, and that just I think they wanted $15 million for a small sliver of land, so that kind of killed the deal.
Speaking of small slivers of land that need rehabilitation, my mind is now pointed right to the Superman building in downtown Providence. Now, a lot of people when does the Superman building become my problem? Well, Providence is the capital city, and that icon is sitting right there. It's been there as an icon for the state of Rhode Island for years and years, since the 20s. It's empty. It's you could say, quote unquote, boarded up, but no one's in there. The latest proposal, which was to put Citizens Bank there, fell apart. The headquarters for Citizens Bank. Do you think the state can participate in any way? And from a leadership standpoint, what do you think needs to be done with that building? Because it is an icon, and it's going to start deteriorating property values in Providence, and I'm going to get into Providence's finances, which are already deteriorating. What do you think about the Superman building, and what can the speaker do to move that along?
Well, first, the Superman building is a privately owned business building, so you know.
As was the Red Sox.
That's correct. Okay. And when there's a public interest,
and as is Wexford.
Where there's absolutely. So whatever the incentives are for the Wexford project, I think should be made available to a project such as the Superman building.
Tax credits.
Yeah, tax credits, but nothing. You can't put all your eggs in one basket. Nothing over the top, too substantial. But I think you can put up to $25 million into any one economic development project. Combining some state incentives with federal incentives, hopefully they can get that building going.
So you think 25?
I do recognize, buddy, that it's creating a problem for neighboring properties, and property values are going down, and people are not going to want to work in a city where you have a vacant building like that. So it's something that has to be addressed, but I start off with the proposition that it's a private enterprise, privately owned business, and that the state will be happy to work with anybody and incentivize economic progress, but it's going to have to be predominantly private in that.
That might be a special legislative enactment, because I think what it might cost to incentivize that building, or the owners of that building, to do something with it, maybe would exhaust the existing tax credits that you already have out there. You mentioned that you'd be willing to go $25 million in tax credits, perhaps.
I think those incentives are already authorized. That would be up to the Commerce Corporation. Right. So there are tools available in the Commerce Corporation for a project such as that.
But not for that kind of money. I mean, that $25 million that they have that's all they have, from that
per project.
Okay, so you feel it doesn't need more than $25 million. That's all you'd be willing to go.
I didn't say it'd be all I'd be willing to go, but I would certainly hope that with that kind of public investment, that they'd be able to rehab that building and modernize it and get it working again.
All right. Now, last time you were here, we talked about the state pension, and I think what I said is bearing out, that so far this year, the state, and to your credit, you guys all in the State House bit the bullet and you reformed the pension system, quote unquote, where the judge gave her order. You guys kind of passed the statutory requirements to put that pension in order. But the whole idea was to reduce the unfunded liability, and you did reduce the unfunded liability, but you took it out of, obviously the rewards to the pensioners and presently people who are paying into the system. Recently, it was disclosed that even though there's a 7.5% expected return on the interest rates, this past year, the fiscal year, that there was 2.2% that was earned. That's almost over 5% of $8 billion. That's 400 million that was kind of left on the table. If you look at other pension systems around the country, the mean, and correct me if I'm wrong, but the median return was about 3.5%. Even there, you're way behind. Yale Endowment made 11.8%. We made 2.2. So far this year, we're at 0.88% return. Now the unfunded liability, according to recent articles I've read, has started to climb. Now it's approaching the $5 billion mark again. That's a lot of money, or more than that, and just hundreds of millions of dollars. And I look at how they invest the money, and it's still in hedge funds, and it's still with people. We can't find out what the hedge funds invest in. We're paying high fees. The Investment Commission maybe is trying to do their best, but maybe that's just not the crowd to handle the investments. Is the legislature, because it's going to come back on your lap eventually, it's because this is going to end. I mean, when is it going to end? It's going to another couple of years. If the market stays the way it is and these people are still in hedge funds, they're going to be back on Mattiello's steps saying, oh, help us some more. So do you intend to take any active role in asking the Pension Investment Commission or the Pension Board what is going on here?
Well, I have confidence in our General Treasurer, and that's ultimately his responsibility to lead that commission. However,
you have oversight, don't you?
Absolutely, and I'm not shirking that responsibility. Ultimately, we have the responsibility to make sure that all things are running smoothly, so I'll certainly look into that. But I will say the news is not all bad. You know, we expect ups and downs in our investments from year to year, and from what I'm told, we smooth it out over a 5-year period. The last 5-year period has earned us 7.38%.
When you could invest it in Standard & Poor's index fund in 2011, those years were terrific years. I mean, I made like 14, 15%. I mean, I know people who made 22%. I mean, we made 7. That's nothing to brag about. That's not good at all compared to what the market is. And not good at all, as a matter of fact.
Right.
When your buddy is hitting home runs, and you're getting walks or getting bunts, I mean, that's not how to run a system.
One of the things that I'm informed of is that you have to look at the demographics of any particular pension fund. We have an older demographic in our fund. We have a lot of cash going out every year, so we have to keep our cash more liquid, our fund more liquid. We can't invest in the ways...
Yeah, there is a cash demand.
We can't invest in the way that some of these funds can invest.
But does it bother you, Mr. Speaker, that just this time last year we had $8.1 billion in that fund, and now we have $7.6 billion in that fund? Does that bother you? When, I think it should. Right?
Well, I don't like that, but
Yeah.
I don't know if bother is the right word, but I don't like that, and that's something that you point out and you correctly point out, and we'll take a look at it. But from what I understand, it's a very complex issue.
Okay. Now, when is the last time? You know, we always say government cooperation. The Democrats run the state. Top to bottom, there's Democratic governor, all the way down, all the general officers, the Speaker, the House, the Senate. Everybody's a Democrat, including everybody in the congressional delegation. Everyone's complaining about the economy, and that isn't a national thing anymore. And we may be making some improvements. I don't know if we are or not. That's still, the jury's out. But when is the last time that the House and the Senate leadership sat down with the congressional delegation and say the governor to see exactly how they could be helpful to the legislative leaders and to the governor as far as putting forth some programs of federal funding, all this stuff? When's the last time you have an actual meeting where you put an agenda together and discuss these things?
We don't actually have actual meetings.
That'd be a good idea, though.
It might be a great idea, but what I will say is the federal delegation is great, and they're always accessible to all of us in the state government.
Okay.
And they're always there and responsive to all of the state's needs. So whether it's myself, the Senate President, the governor, or any one of our colleagues in the House or the Senate, needs access to them or make suggestions to them for federal assistance, they're always there. So there is a lot of communication that goes on almost on a daily basis. We just don't sit down for formal meetings.
Education reform. We saw the results of the PARC test. What is your feeling on the way our kids are learning today and what can be done?
My feeling is that we have a new education commissioner. I have a lot of confidence in him. I think we all have to take a step back, take a deep breath, study the results, figure out how we can improve the system and move forward. We now have a baseline. I don't know what all the factors are. I don't know what all the considerations are for those results. I don't know where we're particularly strong, particularly weak. I'll leave that to the educational experts, but I will say that education is one of the pillars to a strong, robust, and vibrant society. So it's something that we have to work on improving.
Now, you did increase funding, or the governor put in her budget. You know, why don't you just put your own budget, and it ends up being your budget anyway, or the House budget anyway, doesn't it, most likely?
Well, we like being collaborative.
Yeah, so you just wait for the governor to submit her budget, and then you kind of chop it up and do what you got to do.
By law, the governor proposes a budget.
What is your relationship with the governor today, by the way?
Personally, I like the governor. We work well together. We don't all agree as any two individuals. Even though we're both Democrats, the good news is constitutionally we both do our job and we put a check on each other, which I think is great.
Do you think that you might look at things that the Constitutional Convention, if it were to be passed last year, you looking at anything that like Ethics Commission or anything like that?
Well, the public rejected the Constitutional Convention, so that tells us where the public is.
All right.
We'll always look at ethics, but you have to look at speech and debate. I'm always concerned with the institutions and the protections that our forefathers put into place. And when folks come from their neighborhoods and they want to come to serve their community, I want to make sure they have the protections that the forefathers gave them.
All right, that's it for this morning. Congratulations on making it through another year. I know it's a hot house up there, and looking forward to seeing what progress the legislature will make this coming year, starting next week or this week. So we're pleased to have Nick Mattiello. Happy New Year. Thanks for being with us, and we'll have you back again to report to the people maybe halfway through the session, something like that. Is that okay with you?
Happy New Year, buddy.
All right, Happy New Year to you. Thanks for being
sooner the better.
Okay. Thank you for listening and watching this morning. The 6 News in the Rec with Buddy Cianci. Stay tuned for more great programming on Channel 6, your ABC affiliate for Southeastern New England. Have a Happy New Year.